Greetings. I am Ji-Eun Kim, albeit the method of creation of waves in the medium of air for the transmission of knowledge has been switched from my voice box to a text, to speech machine sourced from a random internet website, as per the prohibition on prolonged speech imposed by my medical circumstances of having recently undergone surgery on my nose for the sake of a fracture there. Nonetheless, my theory of knowledge prompt was the fourth: on what grounds could we doubt a claim? As to understand my prompt and whatever I am to be in regards for the foreseeable amount of time, it is necessary to understand a few terms and assumptions foremost, of which the latter shall be presented first. Of the assumptions, foremost I have taken that to doubt would mean to regard something as not true, if for there to be three states as to the factuality of a statement or information, false, falsifiable, and true, then to regard a certain bit of information as either false or falsifiable would mean that one has doubted the certain bit of information. It is true that to doubt implies there exists some kind of a logical rebuttal to it, but considering the word's usage and usually something with a connection to faith, I have come to doubt the usual attribution, spite that in this case it is rather tough to distinguish doubt from denial, but even if doubting included a logical rebuttal that would have only put doubt as a subset of denial. Another assumption of mine was that there exists three states as to the factuality of a statement: false, falsifiable, and true, amongst which to be falsifiable would mean undeterminable as to whether true or false due to some reason. Moving on to the definitions, I have used the standard TOK definition of certainty, something's proximity to being true. For instance, a measure quantifiable in integers from 0 to 100, amongst which from 50 to 99 would mean true, 1 to 49 false, and 100 a fact, would be a measure of certainty. Moving on, something referred to the constituent something to something else refers to something being regarded as true being necessary for aforementioned something else to be true. For instance, must statement, Plato will die, require the statements, Plato is a human, and, a human will die, to be true. Then the latter two statements are constituent statements to the statement, Plato will die. Fundamental A of B, on the other hand, would mean that A is constituent of B and has nothing of which is constituent to itself. In most cases, when referring to a fundamental knowledge to a factual statement, that would usually be a fact directly observed from the world. Organs should be done with, we must analyze my prompt, which will give me clues to my writing. My prompt was, on what grounds could we doubt a claim? Thence, I must be on the search for the causes, i.e. grounds as to doubting a claim, or in other words, whatever that causes one to doubt, as per the definition, to regard something as not true. In conclusion, in application of the definitions and assumptions above, the grounds as to doubting a claim would be whatever that causes, as doubting is an individual act, one to regard the claim as not true. However, since for something to be not true would mean, as per the definition of certainty, for one the claim does not possess sufficient certainty, one form of certainty would be due to the lack of whatever that causes certainty and thus must be related to the criterions of certainty. What are, however, determines certainty? Consider how one rationally determines certainty. If for something's constituent knowledges to be true, then since the constituent knowledges were required to be true for something to be true, something is true. However, whatever that is true on one person may not be true to another. For instance, that bit of knowledge true for one but not true for another may not have been transferred to the latter being at this point in time. Thus, whatever statement which has that bit of knowledge amongst its constituent knowledges could be true for the former person but never for the latter. Therefore, one of the criterions of certainty would be what I would call proximity to the currently accepted fact. Fundamental knowledge. Does one always dig to the very fundamental knowledges to a claim, however? If people would actually have done it, the world would have been far more rational, but learning anything of quite a bit of complexity would be painstakingly slow since human processing power is limited, not to mention one usually has a tendency for the easier. Hence, at some point in determining the constituents for the sake of determining whether some knowledge is true, it is possible that one would deem at some point is enough and determine from another factor, such as the trustworthiness of the source on having provided only true constituents. As such another criterion was derived, source-based prejudice. Current form of doubt, since certainty is an individual act, and a human person is not always a rational being, one could doubt not for the sake of the claim being logically false as well. Simple denial exemplifies this, but it is hard to prove that it was for the sake of just doubting in a logical manner. However, given that climate problems are real, and we also know fossil fuel companies denied of it being true, then interests could also influence not the logical certainty of a statement, but whether one chooses to doubt the statement, as a doubt is an individual action which one must choose to do to be done. Overall, it seems alignment to interests are also a cause for doubt by determining whether one chooses to doubt.